What's going on YouTube? Kronos here and welcome back to the PSO2 video. So in today's video, we're just going over skill trees. Skill trees is something a lot of people have been talking about, have been asking me about what they should go for, what's worth using, what's worth not using, how should they build, and I figure, much like I did back in base PSO2, I can go over the skill trees and just kind of give my thoughts and ideas on what I think might be beneficial and what you might want to avoid so far based on my experiences. Before we jump into that, guys, though, my name's Chrono. If you're new to the channel, I do content here on YouTube daily. Would much appreciate it to subscribe, as it's totally free, and we just, broke past 5K subscribers, so new milestones means new stuff coming, so we'll have to figure that all out. But anyway, guys, let's go ahead and jump into this. So I do want to give a disclaimer. We don't know exactly what skill trees to go with for every single class. That's not the point of this video. The point of this video is just to give an analytical look at all the skills and see what might fit for what you're looking to do, because honestly, skill trees aren't that difficult to deal with in NGS. I mean, there are a couple things that are, I would say, I don't want to say obvious, but there are a few things that you really want to jump towards and some things you kind of want to avoid. But overall, as far as skill trees are concerned, first and foremost, side note of a little tip that I'll probably give another video, but your battle power is increased by your skill points, so it is worth putting all of your skill points in your skill tree. So even if you think like, I'm not going to use this, I don't think this is worth it, I'll save it for, when they come out with new skills. Usually when they come out with new skills, their skill tree resets. I'm sure they're probably going to give a skill tree reset, so you will have access to those. Do not worry too much about that. Just get your skill points in, that way you get that battle power. But if you're curious about what I might want to use, what I should use, what I shouldn't use, we're going to go over it today. So the first thing I'm actually going to do for you guys is I'm going to go over my personal skill tree that I use right now for fighter gunner. Now, there are a few things that I have tweaked based on my experience and what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be changing up some of these skill trees when I'm able to get multiple skill trees to make them a bit more optimal. So I play fighter main. I primarily use double saber and twin dagger, and I'll talk about this in depth more in another video. But what I'm currently set up with is, of course, taking overload and insurance, all of the dagger skills because they're a point, and all of these relate to dagger specifically, all of the double saber skills, primarily because I had tried using all of them. I wanted to try using all of them, so I figured not too difficult to just go ahead and grab them. They're a point apiece, and then the same arts and the another art skip attack along with fighter skip arts. So some people might be curious as why this matters, why taking both of these. Well, one of them will skip you to your third normal, the other one will skip you to your fourth normal. Technically, you could just go ahead and take this alone. This is part about reading through the skill trees. But I took both. I didn't realize at the time that they actually did different effects. I just grabbed them because I wanted to test them. Realistically, I probably would drop the points here, the point here, and put it and just leave it on another skip arts and move forward from there. But same skip arts does allow you to spam one PA twice, so that could be more beneficial for more damage. So it's still a point, not that big a deal. Outside of that, really, we only have a couple points left over. So taking a point in skills a lot of times is worth because of how much you get off the value of the first point. We're getting 30% physical PP, or I'm sorry, defeat PP recovery. I say physical, I'm looking at physical and I'm looking at defeat. But we're getting 30% physical down recovery. So that's just PP recovery when you have an enemy in the down status and dealing more damage. Fighter has a lot of down damage, like down status damage, so really want to push that as much as you can. Where did I go with this? Hang on a second. Did I take more than I thought I would have? No. Okay, no, we're fine. So you're only able to take up to 7 points here. That's right, because if I would have dropped 2 skills, I'd be able to take more points. So say I would have dropped something like same arts, and then I only wanted to grab, I don't know, say I only wanted deadly archer, I didn't want spiral drive. Well, I can take 2 more points there, and then if I wanted to take only one of the 2 types of parries, say saber parry, I could drop a point here and then get more damage here. Realistically, it's only like 1% per point at this point, so it's not that big of a deal that I didn't take those points. So that's really what I'm looking at here. As far as what you're looking for when you're looking at these skill trees, primarily what you're looking for is, does it have a mechanic to do with the weapon that I'm using? Is the mechanic something I'm going to use? Do I want to test it out? I mean, realistically, this is kind of the test phase. The game just came out. We're testing things. People are trying to figure things out. So it's okay to not have an optimal skill tree. Reality speaking, it's not going to be that big of a difference between them. There's not like a huge, crazy skill point sink like there was in PSO2 base. In NGS, it's a lot more forgiving in that situation. So you're not going to feel like, oh, my class is totally ruined, I need to recreate my character, so on and so forth. You can 100% be perfectly fine with a skill tree that isn't completely optimal. So this is what I have set up that I'm using currently right now. Again, I would change a couple of things, but you guys saw that. Let's talk about my gunner sub skill tree. So gunner is a little bit weird where it doesn't have a lot of skills. Basically, these all relate to chain. These 3 relate to just TMGs. Those 2 specifically are related to rifle, And then these two are gunner overall, which is gunner weapons. So what I did, since I only have one skill tree, is I'm actually taking all of the chain with TMGs, putting attack recovery as high as I can. I'm going to point and overwhelm, toss those two in as well. Realistically, I probably don't need these two, but I need them as a main class, so I kind of wanted to go ahead and grab them, and then just did this. So this is basically what I did with this skill tree. Now, the reason for it was because when I actually play gunner as a main class, I want to have this exact skill tree anyway. I'm not going to use rifle on gunner, so I'm going to skip over those skills, and this is kind of what I'm looking at. Now, if I wanted to just optimize primarily for this as a subclass only, I would basically just drop these skills here. None of these would be necessary. And technically, you could drop all of these skills and just flat out go all the way in on overwhelm and attack recovery. You don't need anything else from the gunner skill tree. You could literally just max these two out and you're perfectly fine. That is an optimized subclass gunner. Now, if you want to actually use the TMGs ever, which I would recommend at least having a backup weapon personally, doing something like this is not too bad either. Overwhelm only increases your PP recovery when you're attacking enemies other than a boss, while attack PP recovery increases it while you're attacking just in general. So pretty solid as far as this setup is concerned. So you're gonna have quite a bit of PP recovery anyway. Overwhelm is just adding it when you're attacking, small mobs around, so it's not that big of a deal overall. It's just one of the situations where you can get more PP back so you can get back into the fight. So when you're looking at it this way, this is pretty solid, but again, you can kind of move things around. But let's look at a couple of skill trees that are, some are a little bit more complicated than others. Let's look at Force, which is one I actually did as a subclass for quite some time. So Force has a really awesome ability called PP Convert. Now, PP Convert is a bit bugged at the moment. Again, it's like day 3, I think, of the game being out, so bugs are unfortunately inevitable. Though this one was in beta, so I was hoping this would actually get fixed. But PP Convert, if you ever try activating it and you can't activate it, just short hop in place and then try it again. It sometimes doesn't register properly if you've had a glide or something like that beforehand, so it's a bit weird. But PP Convert, what it does is it just chunks a portion of your HP, and then you just get a bunch of natural PP recovery. So it says your max HP decreases by 20%. I've actually been able to heal mine back up, which I also feel like is a bug as well. Or maybe I just haven't noticed that I wasn't able to heal past a certain amount. To be honest, things happen pretty quick in combat in NGS, and PP Convert doesn't always activate the way you want it to. So for me, it's just been chunking a chunk of my HP, and I've been able to heal that back up. No big deal. Totally all set. But PP Convert, pretty solid. As you put more points into it, of course, it's more natural recovery. Keep in mind, this does work less as a sub than as a main. So as a main, you're looking at 660, when you're looking as a sub at 500 currently with 3 points in. So something to keep in mind of what you want to set up here. But these skill trees are actually set up a lot of the same way. You can look across the skill tree, and I can see right now when I'm looking at all this, I see Photon Flare short, and or short charge, and Photon Flare after PP gain. These 3 skills, all main class specific, because Photon Flare is main class specific. Then as I look over, I look at Elemental Bullet, Rod Technique Hold, Rod React Advance, and Maintain PP gain. All of these are rod specific. If I'm not using a rod, these skills I don't need. If I'm looking at this corner over here, Tricky Capacitor, Talus Boom Revoke, and Floating Pillbox multi-rock. If I'm not using a Talus, I don't need these skills. So you have to ask yourself, what am I actually going to be using? How am I going to be playing the class? Yes, you can think optimal. Is it optimal to use a rod? Is it optimal to use Talus? Technically, we don't know yet. We have to test more. Force is actually pretty strong right now. If you're hearing people talk about it being weak, it's fairly powerful right now. It can do quite a bit. And Talus is pretty awesome too. So if you want to play Talus, say I come to this, I'm like, you know what? I want to play Force, but I want to use Talus as my main. I'm going to go say Force Fighter. Well, I know I want PP Convert. I know I want PP Conversion Increase. We're putting 1 point to start with. That way we can at least get the skill. We know we want Eradication PP Gain because it just gives us PP back when enemies die or they're downed. So super cool there. We want Zonde Clad, we want Barda Bolt. These are going to be useful for the interactions with both Zonde spells and Barda spells, this being very important for Barda spells, and Zonde spells just making them stronger, which they already are stupidly strong. We know we want Photon Flare because it's a main class skill, Photon Short Charge to make my charges shorter, as well as Photon Flare after PP gain to make it so whenever I finish, I get all my PP back that I spent. So we're 8 points in right now. Now we have to think about what else do we need. Well, you could take Rest of Field Force if you want to help out other people, or you could just skip it. Totally fine. Technique Charge PP Well Up. Really, really nice to be able to charge techniques and still get PP back. So again, solid choice. If we're going Talus, we want Tricky Capacitor, Talus Bloom Revoke, as well as Floating Pillbox Multi-Rock. So we're going to take all of those. And now we have to ask ourselves, we've got 7 points left over. What do we do with them? Well, we definitely want 1 point in PP recovery boost because it's 50%, and the rest of them dump into conversion, or we could drop conversion if you're not using that as much. We can just put them in natural recovery. Again, both solid choices depending upon what you're going for. One might be more optimal than the other, but the optimal choice doesn't always matter if you're not going to play that sort of way. You have to ask yourself how you're going to be playing your class if you want to decide how you're going to be choosing your skill points. And that's the most important thing, definitely at the start. Now, granted, again, they give you a skill tree reset. If you want to go full on optimal, wait for people to properly test every possible scenario and then decide on what skill points you want to use. Then you match your playstyle to that optimal play. But at this point in time, if you're looking for just a way to build your skill tree, you can enjoy the game, have a good time, still play fairly well, maybe not fully on optimal, but fairly well is what you're doing, you're perfectly fine with these skill trees. There are some other things to keep in mind as well. If we're looking at forests, some skills are shared, so between Techter and forest. So if I take Zondeclad here and Bartabolt here, if I have Teckers in my main or my sub, I don't need either one of these skills. They already work. Some people are opting to go Techter main class and force subclass, because we can say drop photon flare because we don't need it. This still works, this still works, these still work. All of this still works, this still works, this still works. Like all those skills still work, and then we can go back into main class and we have saved ourselves 2 points right here. Or vice versa. We can, not take these points here, save them here, put them say in a PP recovery boost. Now we've got some extra points to put into PP conversion. We can go ahead and build our class this way and then come back over to your Techter and take the points here if we have them extra. These are things you can think about as far as how you want to build your character. And then a lot of what we were looking at before with Force, Techter works the same way. We have a bunch of skills here that are mostly all class. So we've got Awake Isle, we have Weak Element Amplifier. Of course, 1 point in each is pretty valuable because it's 10% on both situations. We have everything that's supporting Shift the D-Band here on the left-hand side. The party support stuff, which people apparently are skipping. Give me my Shift the D-Band, you nerds. As well as a bunch of other skills here going across the top. Now, these 3 skills specifically, all just are equated to Shift a D-Band. So honestly, they're kind of no-brainers when it comes to Techter tree. I'd grab them. The PP recovery boost isn't just like defense boost, it's actually PP recovery boost. So this is literally still an offensive choice, even with D-Band. These 6 skills here are all wand specific. If you're not taking a wand, there's no reason for you to even look at them. Also, in my opinion, wand element revoke is kind of useless. I was talking with a friend of mine who was playing Techter as well as my editor Weeb, and it's just annoying. Like, you don't need to change your element off of wand. There's no resistance to elements that we've come across so far, at least. So just changing your element to a different element if you need to is totally fine. So this has just been annoying for most people in case they didn't want it. So I would personally skip it. That's kind of like just a little tip. But you can go ahead and take all of these skills here if you want to go specific to wand. If you're not playing wand, don't take any of those skills. These are all 3 Talus. Hey, look, it's the exact same skills from the Force tree. But if you already have it in Force, you don't need it in Techter. So you've got extra skill points. Yet again, you can decide what else do I want to grab. Oh, we have floating landing charge. We'll use with Techter weapons. If we're using a weapon that's shared by Techter and Force, which in this case is Talus, we don't need it either. So we can opt to grab it. We can opt to grab it here instead. Drop it from our Force tree. We can opt to grab these 3 here. Drop them from our Force tree if we want. See, this is just kind of the thought process you can have when you're setting up these classes if you want to set them up a very specific way. So you want to go Techter Force, you want to go Force Fighter, say you want to go Gunner Hunter. There's all these different options as far as classes go that you can look at these trees for. The Ranger skill tree is actually the easiest of all. Literally ignore bad condition as much as you possibly can until you run out of points. You just take everything else. Everything else is substantially more useful. So if you're, Ranger. So any Rangers out there that are like, I don't know what to do for my skill tree, just grab everything and then dump the rest of your points equally into these 2. Honestly, I would probably grab the resistance because I care more about being resistant than it just lasting a shorter amount of time. I just don't want it at all in the first place. So there you go. Ranger skill tree, super dumb easy. Don't subclass Ranger, I'm sorry. Unless you really want to use these weapons. And if you want to use these weapons, just main class Ranger, subclass something else. Maybe you want to go Techter Ranger for some reason. There you go. But you lose Blight rounds, which is pretty bad in my opinion. I guess the only class I haven't talked about specifically was Hunter. Hunter's a little bit more complicated because you have a lot of things going on here. Volgraptor, Oncolobies with Partisan literally doesn't work with anything else. If you use something else, it just doesn't work. But you've got a ton of points. Literally just look at what you want to use. If you're playing only sword, grab sword skills. Say you want to pick up something like Wired Lance to have as a gap closer. Well, Wired Lance extra attack, if you're not going to attack with it, not useful. But maybe you want to use the Wired Lance every once in a while. Grab the skill point. Same art skip, another art skip. Looks like it works maybe the same way. Let's see. Change the third step in the combo. Change the fourth step in the combo. So yeah, it looks like it works the exact same way as fighters. So keep that in mind based on the attack or the combo you're going for. For example, Wired Lance looks like they have a four normal attacks, but I believe Sword has 5 normal attacks. So that might actually matter to you a little bit more as far as your combination of skills. Omnidirectional Guard, good with Hunter weapons. Iron Will, it's kind of just like a free, it's a free one-shot protection every 3 minutes, which you'd be surprised. Being out in the field all the time, you don't really get one shot that often, depending upon how you're playing. So it's gonna be pretty valuable. Plus, you really just have points to play around with. So like if I was in this situation, I wanted to play Sword, I kind of would do something like something like this. And how many points do I have left over? I still have 12 points left over. Like realistically, you could do this as well. You could grab this. I mean, depending upon whether you feel like you need it or not. Like this is 30% cooldown. I mean, like you could have all the points into here. You can put them in a flashcard. If you want a bit more defensive options, you can draw them into these other skills. If you're going to use them, I probably would just leave it something like this. That way I'd have access of using Wired Lance. I have access for both ways of using the class itself, and I've got everything set up the way I want to. So honestly, as far as skill trees go, I didn't really plan to go through all of them, but video's a little longer than we wanted, but hey, now you have an idea of pretty much every single skill tree, somewhat how I would build it, what I'd be looking at, what I would skip it, what I'd be skipping, so on and so forth. So hopefully that helped you guys out. If you guys have any questions, feel free to toss them in the comments below. I'm going to make it short now, just to make things easier for you guys, but like, comment, subscribe. Super helpful, helps out a ton. Make sure to click on the bell icon to be notified of videos and community posts, and don't forget to join us over on Discord or follow me over on Twitter for notifications via those 2 avenues. Thank you guys so much for watching to the end. Make sure to comment if you're part of the end gang, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Peace out.